So here we go. Ready? 3, 2. It's good to be back with you.
It's so good to be back with you as well. It's so good, Joshua.
I'm Josh Sigman.
And I'm Brynn Rouse.
I'm a mortgage guy with a passion for helping people with their money and all things business. Brynn is my co-host.
And I'm a marketing girl. I am literally obsessed with it. Oh, and Josh has showed me how to save money. Quite a bit, actually.
Because of her obsession, I hired her to do my marketing.
And we've worked together for 10 years.
We launched Sigman Sense in 2020, a podcast about money. It's a podcast that teaches people how to save more, give more, create wealth, and retire early.
And we recorded and published 34 episodes. People liked it, and it was so fun.
But most importantly, we helped people. So we're excited to announce we're doing a second season. And we're mixing things up. We're moving away from money talks to focus on all things business. Leadership, management, team building, book reviews, hiring, firing, operations.
Motivating teams, lead generation, time management, personality profiling, closing skills.
And of course, money.
And marketing.
We are inviting you to continue this journey with us, and we want your input. What topics would you like to see covered? Email all of your ideas to our podcast email address, sigmansense@gmail.com.
And be sure to click that subscribe button when you visit our channels. You'll get notified when we drop new episodes.
Are you ready? Season 2, Getting Down to Business. Welcome to Sigman Sense. Welcome back to Sigman Sense.
Welcome.
Yep, and you might notice the new digs. So we are moved into our own new podcast studio space, which I'm super excited about.
Oh my gosh.
I wanted to start really quickly because I do want to give a shout out to Tomas Martinez, who's been a friend of ours for over a decade at this point. And he did a great job of getting into podcasting himself.
Yeah.
And has his own things going on. And he allowed us over the last 2 years to use his studio and space and taught us kind of the ins and out of what we're doing. Yep. And who knew we're actually doing good enough to keep on going and do our own studio. So, but hats off to Tomas Martinez. We can make sure his information is somewhere on this. But
absolutely.
But anyways, we wouldn't be here without him.
Absolutely. And Tomas Martinez owns and runs and operates Luxury Home Magazine. And so for all of our listeners that, are in the real estate community and in the luxury market, that's
for South Texas, all of South Texas.
Yes. Yep. That's where you want to be looking for him for marketing efforts. But yes, I could not agree more. I'm so thankful for the things that he taught us. Mm-hmm. And I would like to point out how excited I am to have our own studio. It's been really fun, the design process. And I wish that it was completely done, but it's not. But let me tell you, when it is completely done, we will have a showcase. The first episode, I want to walk Josh into the studio blindfolded and get his reaction. Because it's going to be amazing, and there's a lot of other uses for it. So
I'll be
stay
for next
tuned.
Year. Yeah, I'll be for next year.
Yep.
And it has been a little bit of time. So been a good 30 days off of not recording because of this change.
Yep.
But we're back in it, and we want to make sure that people know how to end years and start years. Professionally, personally. Yeah. Things that so this will equate to both sides. So it actually kind of reaches back into our season 1 because we have to talk about money a little bit. I think it's really important to talk about that at the end of the year and the beginning of the year. Talk about a little bit of goal settings, which we've touched on in season 2 and 1. Talking a little bit about how to manage those efforts through calendar, which we talked about a lot in season 2.
Yes.
And really how to make sure that you give yourself that measuring stick for how your year ended, and then make sure that you're better prepared for how your year should begin. And so
yes.
I love this time of year.
I love this
really
time
do.
of year.
First of all, it gets chilly, and I know that you like sweaters.
Yep.
But I'm a hunter, and so I love being out in the woods with my family. But I always like to end my years with gratitude. So if I was going to give step 1 where you have to make sure you put your head space at, it always come with gratitude. I find that a lot of people are harder on themselves than is warranted, right? We're our own worst critics sometimes.
Totally.
And you got to, in order to really kind of give yourself an honest review of where you are personally, financially, professionally, spiritually, all those things, I think it starts with making sure you put yourself in the right headspace. Right. And so the exercise for me always starts right before Thanksgiving, because I know for us, we like to do a client appreciation party that we do for our referring partners. We always do that. We like to do it before Thanksgiving. Here's a hot tip for anyone that's in business: be the first or the last. Don't be in the middle.
Yeah.
I know so many people that do their Christmas parties in December, which kind of makes sense, except for the fact that there's 50 others that you're competing with, and it's not a competition thing. But shoot, if you're invited to 6 parties, you're going to say no to something, and it might be yours, right?
Right.
So I love starting off with a great blowout party to say thank you to your referring partners, the people that keep you in business. And we follow that up with our past clients as well, right? So it literally today for us, we have our Christmas with Santa that we've done for years and years and years.
Yeah.
That we invite our past clients with cookies and milk and some adult beverages and things like that. But we like to do that early in the season, not wait to the very end, so it's not muddled. I also think it shows that that we prioritize those people over everybody else, right? So another exercise I've done in the years past, and I'm curious how you kind of approach this as well. But I like to do video texts that I send to people. I literally sat there. I remember this year especially, but Thanksgiving morning, I was literally hunting in my hunting blind with my daughter, and I sent out whispered texts. I was literally whispering because I was in the hunting blind, but the sun's rising. I'm literally thinking about all the things I'm grateful for, and I'm sending out a couple hundred text, video messages to people that I love and appreciate, and want to make sure that they saw me first thing in the morning, because that's where I stand. But a great exercise I've done for years and years is 100 things you're grateful for. And actually taking the time to sit down by yourself or with a spouse and really just kind of write out all the things you were grateful for, because, there are challenges right now, and the world is a little bit different right now, and it's certainly a politically divided world right now. And I know a lot of friends and colleagues that have had professional and personal losses and family losses this last couple of years. So those are all real things.
Right.
But you have to, when you're getting into this time of the year, you also have to focus on what you do have, not what you don't have.
100%.
And so that's where I kind of start the end of the year kind of process.
Yeah. So I love that. And I do have a few things to add. So 2021 for the Rouses has been a challenging year, to say the least. Lots and lots of weird stuff, things like cars being stolen and houses flooding and things like that, right? And so I have not liked or loved 2021, and that also pisses me off, because I don't like to be the person that says, man, this year sucks, right? Like, that's not who I am. So taking some time to think through the biggest things that we identified as, man, like that made it really challenging, and just spend some time thinking through what was the cause? Was there any causes that maybe if we didn't do this, that wouldn't have happened? Because I think there's some learning lessons there.
Like leaving your keys in the car with the car unlocked, that would be a good reason to get your car stolen. Sorry, low-hanging fruit, right, Cannon?
Like I said, just because it's on, it's not an invitation to steal it. But see what you can learn from the things that happened, and be grateful for the lesson. I'm going to smack you. I'm going to smack you.
I love being back in the city with you. This makes me happy.
I mean, one thing that we also do is, in the month of Thanksgiving, I was a little bit late to the party. I normally put out our thank bank on November 1st. So I did not make it until probably halfway through November. And so we did do our thank bank. The idea is that every day someone comes up with something that they're thankful for. We read them on Thanksgiving. This year, we're extending it. So now that we're in December, it is being combined with a blessings bank. And so we'll read those on Thanksgiving.
Or Christmas.
I'm sorry. Yes, on Christmas. Thank you. And that is, as silly as it sounds, that is a very intentional way to think about something that day that you're really grateful for. And then the last thing that I'll say is the use of gratitude lists. So this is something that I worked on with my daughter for damn near the entire year. And when we started this process, it started by me asking her, do you ever think about what you're grateful for and what you're grateful that you have? And she kind of laughed at me and said, no. So I assigned her or challenged her to making a gratitude list every week. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you that week after week, her list was maybe 2 or 3 items long. Here we are in December, and she is turning in 2 pages, sometimes 2 pages, but we are getting a minimum of a full front and back sheet of things that she is grateful for the week.
That's awesome.
And then sometimes there's a stapled page to it, right? Mm-hmm. And here's the other thing that's interesting as well. She got off course for a little bit, and let me tell you the effect that it had on her mindset. Mm-hmm. And so when we went back in to say, hey, what's going on? Where's your head at? And we kind of reviewed, what are you not doing now that you were doing when you were in the right headspace? The gratitude list was something that had fallen off.
That's interesting.
And so she got back onto it immediately. So
a lot to be said. I think we're both on the same page here that you got to start with what you have, not what you don't. And it's a mindset thing, which I think is totally relevant to this podcast. So if you're rolling your eyes, get over it. It works. That's why daily affirmations work. Mm-hmm. It's, you can convince yourself of a lot. But it's also what you choose to focus your energies on, right? Yeah. Give energies to the things that you want to improve. Don't give it to the things that you can't, right?
And find opportunity in the stuff that sucks too, find the lesson.
So the second piece of it and this is for me for all areas, like it's something I always look at the end of every year, is you actually have to measure results at some point. And I know people avoid it. People avoid it like the plague in a lot of cases. And I hate to say it, but they're just simply not as successful as people that do. And that's in all areas, right? So when it really comes down to it, whatever you claimed to be focused on for 2021, whether it was a financial goal or a volume goal or a weight goal or a reading goal or a, date night goal or, coaching your kids goal, whatever the goal was, here it is December and you either did it or you didn't, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people avoid it because of the way it makes them feel.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think is something that has to be worked on by a lot of people. And I'll use my brother. So I love my brother dearly. Probably, obviously, one of the most important people in my life. Mm-hmm. And he, one of the things that he struggles with is kind of this notion of if you don't do something that you're a failure versus you failed at, right? Okay. So like, if I don't hit a goal, I failed at hitting the goal. It doesn't make me a failure. And if you're listening to this and that's speaking to you at all, like it is something you've got to change because it builds on itself. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make somebody a failure to miss the goal over and over and over again. The only time you become a failure is when you stop trying. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the case in all areas. So what I mean by reviewing results, we've talked about in a previous episode, the use of the Wheel of Life. That's something that's really important to me. I make my entire team do it twice a year. And it's if you're listening to this for the first time, it's a 1 to 10 measurement, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst, of all those areas of your life that really are important. So spirituality, family life, love life, self, friends, work, and money. Mm-hmm. And so you've got these 7 areas of life that, you're either doing great at or you're not. And for my team, we always review it and make everyone give goals. And then they've got to report to me often and openly about, how are you doing on that? Mm-hmm. And, we did this as recently as last week where I called out the team. I was like, hey, where are you? And, it's 50-50. It's a mixed bag of people are working on it and getting better or they feel really good about it. And 50% are like, I fell off the thing. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do to help you be more accountable to it? Because we're going to work on it because you're telling me that that's important to you.
Right.
But the key here is it's results. I cannot impress on people enough how important it is also to measure where you were in savings and in net worth and in debt last year this time versus this year this time. Right. It's the whole episode or season 1, mm-hmm. which is track everything, do a personal budget. If you've got a business, do a profit and loss. But the number one rule of business is make a profit, right? And that equates to the home life too, which is you got to be better off this year than you ended last year at, right?
Yes.
So net worth is you either decreased your debts or you increased your assets more than you added debt. That's how you increase your net worth. And so when you look at those, did you work 12 months this year and you're worse off than you started this year at?
What a horrible feeling too. And
that's why people avoid it.
Right.
But it's not getting better.
It's not getting better. I remember that really kind of hitting me like a ton of bricks when I first started working with you, and I'm thinking back to the old office.
Old office.
The old exactly. Yeah, the old office. Gosh, you wake up every day, 365 days of the year, and you're in the exact same place or worse than you were when you started. And like that visual to me was very, very powerful. So it is something that stays at the forefront of my mind. But I also wanted, I wanted to take time to talk through this just one little piece. And we've talked about it I think we did an entire episode on it, is if, so for example, like Josh just said, you went around to everybody and 50% of the people hadn't done, their goal or aren't working on it. The real question is, why is that? Because, let's say someone wanted to start reading. Okay, well, why didn't you start reading? Is it something, and why do you want to start reading? Yeah. What is the purpose behind it? What do you feel like it's going to gain for you? And is that strong enough
to do the work?
Yep. And if that's not the case, then it's the wrong goal. Yep. It's the wrong goal.
Yeah, or the wrong plan on how to execute.
Or the wrong plan. Yes. Maybe you're reading the wrong type of books, or you're not getting. Or you
don't have it in your calendar in the first place to set aside time to give you space to read.
Right, or it's not making you feel the way that you thought it would make you feel to be a reader, or whatever. So there's something missing, and so I think that's worth examining too. Now, hear me clearly. Sometimes you're just not doing the damn work,
most
right?
Of the time,
like,
but as a performance coach, I'd say most of the time.
Most of the time, but also don't be afraid to re-review. Mm-hmm. Is that really? Maybe that's not the goal that I want to put out. And maybe reading one book a week is not getting me the feeling and the results that I thought it would. So change it, right? Instead of having it on your list and continually week after week having to tell people that you're not doing it.
We're gonna have to digress here because I agree with you in some of those areas, and man, I want to argue with you too, right?
Bring it.
Which I love. So so my son signs up for a team, and halfway through the season he doesn't like the team. Is he allowed to quit?
Absolutely freaking not.
Absolutely not. Fucking you chose to do this. You're going to see it through the end. At the end of the season, you can change it.
You can change it at the end.
And so what the piece I would argue here is that I find that a lot of people use I changed my goal as a crutch because they don't want to address the real issue, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
So if the goal for the year was X, you either won or you lost that goal. And so this will go into what I think how we deal with next year, because you're right. In a previous episode, we spoke about how people set goals because they think it's a great idea in the moment, but they didn't think it through, or how to execute it, or what the purpose is, or how it would make them feel, or how hard it would really be.
How are they actually going to do it? Like, do you actually have the time to run 3 miles a day?
Yeah, we all do.
But when? Like, can you do it in the morning? Is that an option for you to run 3 miles in the morning?
Yep.
Can you do it at night? Can you do it? So thinking through those types of things too.
And I love that stuff. We're going to have to talk about the Grand Canyon here at some point, because that got done since our last episode too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Because yes, there's freaking time. I'm a busy human. Like there's just always more time, right?
I do
so going back to the final review, because you're right. But at the end of the day, you've got to review it all. And when you're reviewing your results, it's yes, no, grade yourself, A, B, C, fail. There's no D. It's A, B, or fail probably. Mm. And then how does that make you feel, and are you okay with it or not? Because there are some things that take priority over time. Things do happen, right? So a great example is I screwed up my back, right? I was doing box jumps. Turns out the 40-year-old shouldn't be doing box jumps. There's no reason for them.
I mean, I thought you just stepped off a curb, Josh.
Yeah, that's what it was. But I herniated my L2, L3, L4, L5, and all of a sudden the goals that I had for physical goal I had for first quarter, it's not a reality at this point, right? I've got to work through that. So
loser.
Things do change. I failed at that goal, but it's okay. It doesn't make me a failure or a loser.
Just makes you
I lost.
A loser.
No, I just lost. So
I'm totally kidding.
I know. You can't phase me like I can phase you. It's pretty fun for me. So, but the last piece of this that I've got to add in is not just reviewing the results you've got for whatever you had for your kids, for your family, for your trips that you did or didn't take, for your budget that you did or didn't do. I've got to add in how many people I know that never review the performance of what savings they actually do have. I don't care if you've got a 401k with $5,000 in it, or 10,000 in it, or 500,000 in it.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how few people actually look at the financial performance of their assets.
Yeah.
So once a year at minimum, I would hope it'd be monthly, but at minimum, this would be a great reminder of, if you haven't opened up your effing 401k and looked at your, did it go up by 3%, 7%, or 15% in a year where, the market's absolutely crushed it.
Yeah.
It'd be great to know if you've got a great financial planner or not, if you mismanage your funds or not, whether you had a crappy portfolio or not, because we want to change those things.
Sure.
And so it's fun for me when you've got great markets like we have right now in both real estate and in the financial markets to look at your net worth, which you might have a lot more than you thought you had. Nationwide values of properties have exploded. So if you are a homeowner, I don't care if you're a first-time homeowner, you've got multiple properties, you're worth more today than you probably think based on the equity in the properties. If you have any retirement savings whatsoever, you probably have more than you think you do if you haven't looked at it recently. And so reviewing the financial results, I think, is really important because over time, it's going to be, finances are going to be important one day. Whether you're willing to look at it now or not, it's going to be important. It's either going to work to your benefit or you're going to have a really bad struggle here at the end, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So reviewing the results of all those other areas, spirituality, friends, family, love life. Is your love life better than it was at the beginning of the year or worse? I can actually say it's better this year. So it's a great thing. Is your relationship with your kids better or worse than the beginning of the year? Is your weight better or worse than the beginning of the year? Is your money better or worse than the beginning of the year? Like all those things have to be reviewed.
Your friendships.
Yeah. Did you see all the friends that you
want? Did you get rid of the friend that was maybe making you make bad choices?
That's right. All the things you said you're going to do, did you follow through or not? And so that's the starting point, is start with gratitude. Make sure you're in a good mindset before you look at this, because when you're not in a good mindset, you can make all this look really ugly. It's never as good. I didn't hit to get that last deal. I didn't make as much money as I thought I was going to make. I didn't. If you're in the wrong mindset, if you look at it with gratitude, then all of a sudden you open your eyes to, well, it wasn't really quite as bad as I made it out to be.
And guess what?
Right.
We're about to start over.
That's
and
right.
you can get back on track.
0 to 0 and January 1st, right?
That's right.
So,
I love it.
And that's where I think this kind of middle of this podcast goes into, which is kind of re-engaging relationships at the end of the year. And if you don't listen to this until the beginning of the year, like right away, because there's a lot of re-engagement of relationships that's important on the financial side of things, but also important on business and family side of things as well. So people are busy in the summertime. A lot of people move homes. A lot of people are on vacations. In our industry, it's the hottest market is always the summers. Most people move in the summers, as an example. But it's really amazing to me how many people are available for a meeting in January, right? How many people are available for a conversation in the fourth quarter and first quarter. And so when I think about the teams, what I'm talking about is, do you have a CPA or a financial planner? Do you have a will and trust that needs to be revisited? Do you have an insurance policy that you've just let go for 15 years with the same insurance company, whether or not it makes sense or not?
Right.
This is the time of year, in my opinion, to go re-engage those people that are making money off of you, your CPA, your financial planner, your insurance agent, and say, hey, I need some time before the end of the year. I want you to do a quick review of my insurance policy. I want you to reprice things out. Tell me if I can get a better deal somewhere else.
I love that. That's not that was not where my mind went with re-engage relationships, and I love that you went there. That's perfect.
I think it's super important. All these people make money on you. They need to work for you a little bit, and this is separate, of course, in re-engaging relationships of friendships or family members that you haven't seen as well, which I think is what you were thinking.
That's exactly for sure.
I'm thinking in terms of, okay, so let's just say you have moderate assets, you're not rich, you're not poor, but you've got something to pay attention to, right? We do refinances all the time. One of the top questions I always ask is, why haven't you filed your homestead exemption ever? And you've been living the property, and in Texas, you get issued 10% discount on your taxes.
Yeah.
If you just file and check one box in one piece of paper saying I live here, and it's costing them $500 to $1,000 a year because they never checked the damn box, right?
I mean,
so. Like, that's a weird thing for me to say, but you take that to financial planners, right? There are many, and most financial planners take your money and park it somewhere and never look at it again because you're not big on their scale.
Right.
But if you pick up the phone and say, hey, can you take a quick look and see if there's any tax harvesting that can be done? And let me explain this for viewers. Basically, we know that when you make money in the stock market and you sell those stocks, you're realizing a gain, whether it's a long-term or short-term gain, you're going to pay taxes on them. But you can be strategic and sell things that are down to offset those stocks and mutual funds that were up. And what's really beautiful about it is you can do that and you never lose the write-off. Meaning, if you write off, you had so many losses that you could write off, and you didn't have enough gains elsewhere and long-term gains to offset those losses carry forward. So you never lose the benefit of that. So if you have a good financial planner, they're going to do some tax harvesting in the fourth quarter before the end of the year, before it's too late.
Yeah.
So that you don't have this extra tax burden in the following year, right?
Yeah.
Talking with your CPA before the end of the year to see if there's any upcoming changes, which there are. With our current administration, not a political statement, we're going to be paying more taxes the next several years.
Right.
So, and the more you make, the more it's going to affect you. But just sitting around waiting with your thumb up your butt for it to happen to you is crazy.
When we had our first financial advisor, we had our first CPA, I thought I thought they'd reach out to me. Like, I really didn't know that I was the one that needed to initiate.
You shouldn't have to, but that's the truth.
But it's the truth. I mean, you do have to be the one in most cases to initiate those conversations. And so here's your lesson. You gotta make the call.
Yep. So I'll tell you this much. Like, I engage my financial planners monthly.
Yeah.
I engage my CPA monthly. I'm engaged all the time. I require, every 4 months or so to have a lunch with me. Like, I want to know my people that are in charge of my money and my taxes and my wills and trusts. Like, we're getting together. We're friends. And I hate to say it this way, guys, but the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Sure.
If you call any professional and ask for something to be done, unless they want to be fired, they're going to do it, right?
Yeah. And then if you call enough, maybe they will start calling you and you won't have to.
Well, and that goes to as simple as saying, and it depends. Again, depending on how many assets you might have, you might only need to do an annual meeting. But have you done an annual meeting in the last 3 years?
Right.
You might, but if you have something significant, and significant is defined as for you. If it's significant enough for you to worry about, like, is it growing or not, then why wouldn't you insist on a quarterly conversation? If you are a top, call it a top 20% client of theirs, which you won't know unless you ask, if you're top 20%. And by the way, you'd be surprised at how low it takes to get to a 20% of most financial planners' portfolios. Just to ask and find out, am I a meaningful relationship? They'll tell you.
Yeah.
And if so, why wouldn't you ask for a quarterly lunch together?
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this. I think this could be very helpful, and you can run through it quickly. What are the top 3 questions to talk about or to ask in these meetings?
Great question. Super easy. So when it comes to financial planners, how do you perform against the averages? So, if the S&P 500 has an average return of 8 to 9% a year, like, if I'm paying you money, you should make more than that. If the S&P 500 went down 5% in a year, which it hasn't recently, but if it went down 5% a year, you should lose less than that. Otherwise, why am I with you if I'm not performing what is considered average, right? Like, there's a discussion point here. So that's one. Second thing is, am I on track for retirement? Ask directly. You and I just had a budget meeting.
Right.
What's the first, like, literally I said, when was the last time you talked to Ron about this, right? Like, you got to have those conversations because sometimes you make more, sometimes you make less. All of a sudden you have these big equity gains in real estate, or a massive market year like the last 2 years have been, where, instead of retiring at 55, maybe you can retire at 53, and it makes it fun to know that. Doesn't mean you don't keep, giving the money, because we invest always, but it's good to know that you're ahead of track or behind track or on track, right?
Right. And
like,
so
it goes back to, what are the results? Like, where are we right now?
Right. And so to expand on that a little bit, we set this up 5 years ago, and he gave us a number. Here's how much you need to save every month to retire at these ages.
And that's based on an assumption of rate of return,
right,
and income,
and where we were 5 years ago.
Yep.
And so, hello, yeah, I need to know what has that number changed?
Yep.
Do we need to be doing more or less or whatever? Yep. So, okay, perfect.
Let me give you a good example here by why this is really important. So, think about a plane and the gas that is required to fly from LA to Atlanta. Okay. You would think that, Delta's flown that flight 1 billion times, so they know how much gas is required to fly from LA to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. But the answer is it depends. And the answer is because it depends on freaking wind. Do you have a headwind or a tailwind? Do you have a very heavy tailwind, or do you have a very heavy headwind? And I guarantee you that the pilots don't just fucking guess. They look down at the dials every once in a while, and they know they need to, like, it's amazing to me how often I get on a plane and it's, delayed takeoff by 20 minutes and we land 5 minutes early.
Right.
Well, how does that happen? It's because they pay attention to the results and they push the throttle a little bit harder. So maybe in a down year last year, you might have to invest more money per month this year. In a great year like this year, if you need to save money for college or needs to do something extra somewhere else, you can throttle back in other areas because you're looking at the results, and the results are telling you what you should be doing, not we're hoping that works out. Hoping and praying does not bode well in finances, just letting you know.
Yeah.
So that was another question I would ask. Another one that I would always ask any CPA or bookkeeper, because you would ask.
So those are financial planner questions.
Those are financial planner questions.
So now move on to CPA.
Yep. CPA questions are always, and you want to do this before the end of the year, and I'm talking not December 25th either, because you can't do anything at that time, but asking in the fourth quarter, are there any expected changes to our tax code, state or federal, that might impact me? Okay. Like, I need to know that stuff, right?
Okay.
Another one is, so if you're a salaried person, am I over collecting or under collecting for taxes based on what you're claiming, right? Like, are you a 0, 1, or 2? What number are you claiming for the withholdings, but for a paycheck? Because you want to be just right. Like, it's the bears, right? You don't want to be too hot, too cold. You don't want to wait for the government to make money on you in interest for a year to finally get some back in a year and a half. Nor do you want to be short and all of a sudden have a big check to write, right? So am I hot, cold, or just right based on what you're expecting my taxes to be for this year? Is there anything I can take advantage of, or I should be thinking about taking advantage of in 2022 or the following year, right? So it's just about knowledge is power.
And should I refinance my house?
Well, yeah. I mean, all those things come up. A good financial planner and CPA is going to ask all those questions, like, what's your interest rate? What, do you have debts that need to be paid off? But my point is that utilize resources. And that's why I literally wrote down, meet with your team. And if you don't have a team, the answer is get one.
Get a team, yeah.
Like, meet with your team or get one. Even if you don't feel like you have enough money to give to a financial planner, let me just tell you, I started with $50 a month.
Yeah.
Like, you have to start somewhere, but let's start. And
that's what we did too.
And knowledge is power, and it pays off long term. So
for sure. I love that.
I would also take the step further that anyone with children or any wealth at all, anything in the event of your death, it's going to go to somebody, which means 50,000 isn't 25,000 is enough. If you want that to go to somebody specific instead of hope it works out in the court systems for probate, right, then you got to meet with your will and trust attorney on an annual basis, right? Yeah. Update. So let me tell you why this is important. In the last 15 years, who gets my kids has changed 3 times. Yeah. It's changed based on location. Like, it's one thing for your kids to, like, I've got some of my dearest friends are Carson and Laura. They live up in Austin, and I trust them with my children, right? And that would work if we had died when our kids were not in school.
Right.
But now I've got a high schooler, a middle schooler, and elementary school kid, and it's not appropriate for me to they lose their parents,
and
then we're going to rip them out of their support system and move them up to Austin. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's an example of something that made sense when we wrote it, but it doesn't make sense now. There's people that still have will and trust that their ex still is the one that's the financial decision maker, that's the trustee, right? So I hate to say those things, but you got to go relook at every year. Read what, like literally right now, I've got mine back in my truck because I'm going to go reread my family trust, my beneficiary trust, my charitable trust, make sure that I don't want to, like, who's in charge of money?
Yeah.
Who does it go to? Like I was looking at one of them. So my old trust said all guns go to, because I'm in Texas and yes, I collect guns. All my guns go to my son. I've got 2 daughters and 1 son, right? My daughters would absolutely hate me if my son got all the guns. So now all of them are divided equally amongst my children because all my kids are hunters, right?
Yeah.
But like those things do change over time, and you don't want to piss somebody off that you just didn't care about it, or that you love, that you don't want to feel
and
that
people
way.
age out of the ability to take care of kids.
Oh yeah.
And that's something
that's real.
We've had to think about. That our gut reaction was,
well, of course,
of course they would go to my parents. Well, that's good for maybe another 2 years. After that point, it would not be fair for her and my dad to have to take on young kids again. And so yeah. And then again, like you said too, relationships. Actually, I don't think you said this. Relationships change.
Oh, yeah.
You were really good friends with somebody or whatever, and now that's no longer the case.
Yep.
Holy moly. If that has not been changed in your will,
all those things are really important to address. I'd say those are the top. Insurance would be the fourth one. Insurance you should look at once every year at least. They all renew. That's what your insurance does, renew every year. And so it's foolish not to make your insurance company work for you. They get a commission. So all you do is you call your insurance broker, and this is why I do like brokers more than I like an institution. Mm-hmm. Like I see people all the time, like USAA is a fabulous company. It's a San Antonio massive employer. I love how they take care of veterans for everyone that's got them. Mm-hmm. And they're just not, there are other companies with similar coverages some years at a cheaper price, right? So outside of being super loyal to an institution that your granddaddy had it makes sense to have
to shop around,
somebody take a look at it, because I'm the first person to pay up for sure. If it's anywhere close to what I can get, I'd rather have the relationship and longevity with somebody. But at the end of the day, there's a point for everybody. Like if you could save 50 cents of every dollar of insurance, 50 cents, why would you not do it? And this is not an attack on USA. I'm just giving this an example.
Just as an example, for sure.
An Allstate, State Farm, all these different agencies, you got to take a look at it once a year, or have them internally look at, is there something that you can qualify for now that you've been a loyal member for your 5th year? Is there maybe some sort of discount that you might get? And it's as simple as a phone call.
And also assets that you may have inherited over the course
sold.
of the year.
Dude, I paid for insurance 10 years ago. I had a car that I had sold. I paid insurance on for a year and a half after I'd sold it.
Oh gosh.
Because it was bundled in with everything else. And I was like, the good news is that, and I want everyone to hear this loud and clear, there's something called unearned premium. So the company refunded me all the premiums for the last 18 months because I proved that I had sold it. I no longer had it at that time.
Well, that's sure nice.
People do, like when you sell a house, a lot of times people have auto draft for their insurance.
Right.
They don't notice literally for a period of time, and all of a sudden a year goes by and another year, or even this, your escrow account pays next year's insurance, and you sell it a month later. Okay. Well, it's paid up for 12 months, but you only were insured for a month of it. They owe you 11 months back, right? But this is why these areas, insurance, financial planning, will and trust attorneys, and CPAs need to be talked to once a year, right? Yeah. So if you don't have a team, build it. If you needed recommendations, call me. I'll give you my people if you're in South Texas.
Absolutely.
So all that to be said, that's how we finish up our years, right? It's start with gratitude, make sure you're in the right mindset. Go ahead and review your results, in the other areas outside of finances, but definitely be honest with yourself with your finances. Mm-hmm. Meet with your team for potential changes. And then the last piece that we have to do is, how do you start the year?
Yeah.
And my answer is a little bit better. Like, so many people take New Year's resolutions, all these things so seriously, and they fail. No, they're not failures. They fail quite often. because they're making this declaration of this massive change in their lives that are going to happen because of the magical day of January 1st, right? Yeah. And, I've had the privilege of running my team now for 17 years, and we've had another great year. And all my answer was, my team is, we're just going to do one more deal. We're going to do a little bit better. And that application of a little bit better always in all areas of your life will serve you really, really, really well. So, it's not about losing 100 pounds, although some people need to lose 100 pounds.
See,
it's
and
like
I
lose
think
the
that's
first
more
10.
of a goal. Like, I feel like a resolution would
Absolutely.
be like something a little more like, every time I see a homeless person on, the street corner, I'm going to keep crackers in my car so I can give them one. Like something a little more like non-goal specific related, like a resolution of, something you want to implement in your life, because I feel like goals are just very different. And if you make your New Year's resolution a weight goal, well, there's so much room for the failure piece, or right, or to not.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't think of another good example of like what.
That's fine. And again, this goes back to just a difference of viewpoint. Like, to me, a New Year's resolution would be, of everything I want to accomplish this year, here's the one thing I will. Of everything I want to accomplish this year, here's the one thing I will do. Of everything I want to change this year, there's the one thing I want to change, right? So you can apply it the way you're saying it, absolutely. But it goes, for me, I think when I think about New Year's resolutions, it's what's one area I'm fed up with that I want to really give attention to.
Yeah.
And so it might be, charitable giving. It might be,
I guess
I'm actually going to do a budget. But it's the reason why it fails is what we started with the conversation with, which is, well, why do you want to do that? Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
Of all things in this entire year, this is the one thing you really want to do. Are you sure?
So I kind of like the idea of the way you just said it. Like the resolution is, I'm fed up with my money.
Yep.
Now the goals to get there, to fix this
I'm
resolution,
do a budget every month.
Are here.
I'm going to do a budget every month.
So I like that. I like that better, because I do feel like the resolution and the goal are too closely.
Well, usually a resolution's gonna have a plan with small goals along the way, right? So if the resolution is, hey, and by the way, this also goes back to statements, right? Like you said earlier, I'm not a reader. Like not meaning to you, but the person that says that they're gonna read a book a week, they're not a reader. Well, here's how I'd like to finish this conversation with, because the reason why resolutions fail is because of lack of purpose and lack of planning and lack of execution, one or all of the three. Like, why do you really want to do this? Well, my doctor said for the third year in a row, I've got a fatty liver. I'm going to die if I don't stop drinking. Okay. Now there's real purpose behind why your resolution is, I'm not going to drink next year, right? The how you do that, or it becomes part of the plan. Like, so I agree to only drink one time per month. So whenever I use that, that's it. Or maybe maybe it goes from day drinking to only on the weekends for some people, or whatever, which is a step in the right direction, right? But what's the plan? So what's the plan? And then the execution is lack of accountability, which is not telling people, being bold and sharing those things. If it really matters to you and there's a plan behind it, like, where do I need your help? Is something that just is what is lacking, generally speaking. And so when you really look at it that way, then if you've taken the time for the last 30 days through November and December, which is 60, to actually work on gratitude and look at your results and identify, are you really happy with where you are or not, then you're not just being asked on New Year's Eve, hey, what's your New Year's resolution? Well, now you've taken the time to be in the right headspace with looking at the right results. And here's something that I'm fed up with, or I really want to make a movement in. Now I've got a real resolution. I've got some time to plan on it. So I come out the gates working on and executing a real plan. That's not it's not just a winged event.
Right.
And that's the difference. You know what I always say, what's so famous about the 21st of January? By then, 99% of everyone stopped doing their New Year's resolution. So just make it 3 weeks.
Make it 3 weeks.
Once you get through 3 weeks, you're better than 9% of the world.
The other thing that's really powerful, and this is something that Rachel Hollis talks about a lot, is writing down your goals or your resolution as if they've already happened.
Yep.
I am a reader.
Absolutely.
I am a runner. I am an amazing mother. I am, I have 5 best friends, which I love. I love that. So I think add that into your gratitude.
And that's how I'll finish this segment for myself, and whatever your final thoughts are, I'd love to hear them too. But I'm reading a great book right now in my Bible study called Letters from a Skeptic. And it's a story between a father and son. One's a believer, one's not a believer, and they're writing back and forth, which is a really cool dialogue for anyone that's looking for that dialogue to, two very intelligent people, very, convicted in their personal beliefs. And it's a written letters back and forth between father and son. And at the very least, they wanted to just know each other better and understand each other's beliefs better. It's a really cool development of the book. But one of the things that really sticks out to me is that, they use the example of, why are there evil people in the world, right? And the answer is there's no evil people in the world. There's people that make bad decisions over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. There's no good people in the world. There's people that make good decisions over and over again. And that's what creates those habits. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about, when does somebody become a runner? Well, here's when they ran their 3rd, 5th marathon, I guess. I don't know. They're running all the time. They're runners.
I don't know, when they get on their shoes and run,
right.
run down the
But they've made those
block.
choices over and over and over again. And one day they woke up and it's what is the couch to 5K? All of a sudden they're a runner one day. I'm
a runner.
Right. So when you become a reader, well, I don't know. Just keep reading over and over and put on your calendar and make that a priority and you become a reader. Yeah. So to me, that's how you make sure that 2022 is better than 2021. That's how you should approach every year. But I'm just really grateful for the audience and for our new space.
Yes, I am too. This was fun. This was very fun.
But I hope everyone has a great end of their year. And what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are I absolutely thrive in the last quarter of the year. Mm-hmm. One, there's a lot of energy, especially in our business, lots of energy and parties and seeing people. But what I love most is that we do get a chance to celebrate what has happened that went really well. And then what I love more is that we get a chance to build out in detail what we're going to do in the next year. That's right. And let me tell you, Justine and I just finished our 2022 marketing plan, and we are jazzed about it.
It's awesome.
We're jazzed, we're excited. And so it really just, I just love it. I love everything about it. It's a refresh. It's a restart button. I love it.
Yeah. So whether you had a great year this year or a poor year this year, you get another game to play starting January 1st. So welcome back to Sigman Sense, and we had a great time this time.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening.
Yeah, thank you for being our loyal listeners. It means the world to us.
Absolutely. So make sure you're finding us on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. Subscribe if you need us. sigmansense@gmail.com is the place you should look. And stay tuned for progress on the new studio.
See you next time, guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.